I never meant to overhear it. I was walking down the hallway of my parents' house, carrying a basket of laundry I had folded for Mom, when I heard my name. Their voices were low but sharp, the kind of whispers that carry more weight than shouting. Dad said, "We'll sign everything over to Daniel. He deserves it. Alicia doesn't need much, she'll manage." My steps froze. For a moment, I thought maybe I misheard. I pressed myself against the wall, my heart pounding so loud I worried they would hear it. Mom sighed, her voice tired but firm. "Yes, Daniel is our son, our pride. Alicia has always been fine on her own. She doesn't need inheritance money to survive. But Daniel, he needs it to keep his life together." I felt my throat tighten. My own parents, the people I had trusted and cared for all my life, were planning to cut me out. They weren't just discussing money. They were choosing him over me, as if my years of effort, my loyalty, my sacrifices meant nothing. I wanted to walk in and confront them right there, but my feet wouldn't move. Instead, I stood frozen, listening to the words that broke me piece by piece. Dad added, almost in a whisper, "She's not as important as he is. Daniel is our future. He'll carry our name forward. Alicia will be fine with whatever's left." The room spun around me. Not important. After all the times I had worked double shifts to help them with bills? After paying off debts that weren't even mine, so they wouldn't lose the house? After standing by Daniel when he messed up, covering for him so our family wouldn't look bad? I pressed my hand against my mouth, trying to stop the sob that wanted to escape. My chest burned with a mixture of anger and sorrow. How could they see me as less than? How could they treat me like I was invisible in my own family? I thought about walking away quietly, pretending I hadn't heard, but something inside me snapped. For the first time, I saw my parents differently, not as protectors, not as guides, but as people willing to betray their own daughter just to keep their golden sun shining. As I stood there, hidden in the hallway shadows, I felt confusion first, then disbelief, then a deep, cutting pain that settled in my bone. I knew, in that moment, nothing would ever be the same again. And I knew one more thing. They had no idea I was standing right there, listening. Do you want me to end each section like this with a mini cliffhanger line? They had no idea I was standing right there, listening. To make the audience desperate to keep watching? Growing up in my family, I was the quiet one. I was the child who did everything right, who followed the rules, who stayed out of trouble. My parents never had to worry about me because I was dependable. If they asked me to help around the house, I did it without complaint. If they needed someone to look after things when they were busy, I stepped in. From a young age, I learned that being reliable meant keeping the peace. Daniel, on the other hand, was different. He was the golden child. Even when he messed up, my parents found a way to excuse him. If he failed a class, they said the teacher was too harsh. If he stayed out late and caused trouble in the neighborhood, they said boys will be boys. When I got straight A's, my parents smiled politely but quickly changed the subject. When Daniel barely scraped by, they celebrated him as though he had achieved something great. I used to think I didn't mind. I told myself it didn't matter who got the attention, as long as the family was okay. But deep down, I felt the sting. I wanted to be seen, not just as the daughter who could manage on her own, but as someone worthy of love and recognition. As the years passed, Daniel leaned on the safety net our parents provided. He jumped from one failed business idea to another, always confident that Mom and Dad would catch him if he fell. And they did. They poured money into his mistakes, defended him to relatives, and spoke of him as if he was destined for greatness. Meanwhile, I worked hard. I studied late into the night to win scholarships so I wouldn't be a financial burden. I skipped outings with friends so I could save money. When our family went through a rough patch and nearly lost the house, it was my savings that helped cover the mortgage. I never told anyone where the money came from. I just wanted us to stay together, and I thought maybe, just maybe, they would notice how much I cared. But if they noticed, they never said it. Even now, as an adult, the pattern continues. I have a stable career, one I built on my own. I pay my bills on time. I lend money to my parents when they're short, and I make sure they're comfortable. Daniel still stumbles from one problem to another, but when he shows up at the door, they welcome him with open arms. There have been nights when I stayed up late at their house, helping Mom sort through bills or keeping Dad company when he was sick. And there have been just as many nights when Daniel breezed in, late and careless, only to be served the biggest portion at dinner while I quietly cleared the dishes. I tell myself I'm strong, that I don't need their approval, but sometimes it hurts more than I can admit. All I've ever wanted is fairness. Not favoritism, not riches, just recognition that my efforts matter too. I've always been the one who carried the quiet weight of responsibility, while Daniel was celebrated for simply existing. There's a part of me that still hopes, even now, that one day they'll look at me and say, "We're proud of you, Alicia. We see you." But after hearing what I heard in that hallway, that fragile hope began to crack. All my life, I've been the daughter who gave without asking for much in return. The one who never needed rescuing. The one who could be counted on. And yet, somehow in their eyes, that made me less deserving. It's a strange kind of pain, being invisible in your own family. I couldn't carry the secret for long. After hearing my parents speak in the living room that night, I lay awake for hours, my chest heavy, my mind spinning. Their words replayed again and again, cutting deeper each time. By morning, I knew I couldn't stay silent. I had to confront them, even if it meant hearing the truth out loud. I walked into the kitchen where Mom was making tea and Dad was reading the paper. My voice shook at first, but I forced the words out. I heard you last night. I heard everything you said about giving the inheritance to Daniel. They both froze. Dad lowered the paper slowly, his face tightening, while Mom placed the teapot down too quickly, spilling some water on the counter. Neither of them spoke at first, and that silence made my heart pound louder. Finally, Dad sighed. Alicia, you weren't supposed to hear that. You misunderstand. I didn't misunderstand. I cut in, my voice trembling but firm. You were planning to give everything to Daniel. Everything. After all I've done, after everything I've given up for this family, how could you even think of leaving me with nothing? Mom's face softened for a second, but then she shook her head, almost impatiently. Alicia, you don't need to take this so personally. You've always been independent. You've built your life. Daniel hasn't. He struggles more. He needs us in ways you never did. The words stung worse than a slap. So because I work hard, because I've carried myself, I'm punished for it? Because I don't cause trouble, I don't deserve recognition? You make it sound like being reliable is a crime. Dad set his paper aside and spoke in a steady, almost cold tone. This isn't about punishment. It's about practicality. Daniel is the one who will carry our name forward. He's our son, our bloodline. You'll be fine, Alicia. You've always been fine. My throat burned. Your son. And what am I? Am I not your child too? Do my sacrifices mean nothing? Who paid off the mortgage when you were about to lose the house? Who stayed home to take care of you when you were sick? Who gave up her own chances just so this family could stand? That was me. Not Daniel. Me. Mom's eyes darted away, and I saw the guilt there, but she didn't admit it. Instead, she whispered, We're grateful, Alicia, but you don't need an inheritance to survive. Daniel does. He's different. Different. I let out a bitter laugh. Different because he fails, and you keep rewarding him for it? Different because he wastes money and time, and I have to clean up the mess? All my life, I've been invisible to you, and now you're proving it. The air in the room grew heavy. Dad's expression hardened. Don't speak like that. You sound ungrateful. Everything we've done has been for this family. Ungrateful. My voice cracked. I've given everything, and you've never once said, We see you, Alicia. We're proud of you. Instead, you hand everything to Daniel like he's a king, and I'm just a servant. Do you even love me the same way you love him? For a long moment, neither of them answered. That silence was worse than any words. It was my answer. I felt something inside me break. This wasn't just about money. It wasn't about property or inheritance. It was about years of my loyalty, years of putting family first, being dismissed as though it never mattered. The inheritance was only a symbol. It showed me where I truly stood in their hearts. And the days after that confrontation were the hardest I had ever lived through. The house I once thought of as home turned cold, even when the sun poured through the curtain. My parents stopped talking to me in the same way. Conversations became short, clipped, or avoided altogether. When they did speak, their words carried a quiet weight meant to guilt me into silence. Mom would sigh heavily whenever I walked into the room, as though my presence alone was a burden. Dad started giving me looks that said more than words ever could. Looks that told me I had disappointed them by daring to question their decision. The warmth I had spent years building with them was gone, replaced by a wall I couldn't climb. Daniel, of course, seemed to grow stronger from my pain. He carried himself like a prince who had already won the crown. One evening, when I came to visit and sat quietly at the table, he smirked at me and said, You really thought you were going to get something, didn't you? Alicia, you're the responsible one. You don't need anything. But me? I'm the future. That's what Mom and Dad say. You can't fight destiny. His words burned, but what hurt more was seeing Mom laugh nervously at his joke, as if she didn't want to upset him. Dad didn't say a word to stop him. In their silence, they gave him permission to mock me. It became unbearable to sit with them, so I started visiting less often. When I did come, I noticed small things. My chair at the dining table was no longer set before I arrived. Daniel's name was always the first spoken, his stories filling the room while mine were left unheard. I felt invisible, like a guest in my own family. My closest friends noticed the change in me. One night over dinner, I broke down and told them everything, about the inheritance, about Daniel's entitlement, about my parents dismissing me. They were outraged on my behalf. My friend Sarah reached across the table and grabbed my hand. Alicia, you can't let them do this to you. This isn't just about money. This is about your worth. You have every right to fight this legally. Don't just walk away. The thought made my stomach twist. Taking my parents to court? Suing my own family? It felt unthinkable, wrong even. If I do that, I whispered, I'll lose them forever. You've already lost them, another friend, Michael, said gently. At least this way, you're not letting them walk all over you. They've chosen Daniel again and again. It's time you choose yourself. I wanted to believe them, but late at night, when the house was quiet, I questioned everything. Was I being selfish? Was I really greedy, like Daniel suggested, for wanting fairness? A small voice inside me said no, I wasn't greedy. I was asking for the respect I deserved. But the guilt my parents had planted in me for years made me doubt myself. Things grew worse when I learned what they were telling relatives. One afternoon, I bumped into my aunt at the grocery store. She looked at me with pity in her eyes and said, Alicia, why are you fighting your parents over money? Family should be more important than wealth. You're better than that. I froze. I hadn't told her anything. My parents had. The betrayal stung deeper than anything else. Not only had they dismissed me in private, but now they were painting me as the greedy daughter to everyone else. To them, I wasn't the child who had sacrificed, who had held them together. I was the villain trying to steal from her own brother. At that moment, I realized how alone I truly was. My parents and Daniel had formed one side, united against me, and I stood on the other side, isolated, with only the truth in my heart. Every visit turned into a test of endurance. Mom would drop subtle comments like, "Family peace is more valuable than money, Alicia," while Dad would shake his head and mutter, "I never thought you'd turn against us." Daniel would smirk, lean back in his chair, and say, "Don't be bitter, sis. Some of us are just chosen." I began to dread walking through their front door. The tension was heavy, the air thick with unspoken accusations. Sometimes I wondered if it was worth it, if keeping the peace, even at the cost of my dignity, was better than standing up for myself. But every time I remembered the way they had spoken behind my back, every time I heard Daniel mocking me, every time a relative repeated the lies my parents spread, I felt the anger grow stronger. It wasn't just about inheritance anymore. It was about the truth of who I was in their eyes. And the truth was clear. They had never seen me as equal. They had never valued me the way they valued Daniel. The conflict tore at me day after day. Should I protect the fragile thread of family peace, even though it choked me? Or should I protect myself, even if it meant being labeled as the greedy, ungrateful daughter? Deep down, I already knew the answer. It happened one quiet evening, when I stopped by my parents' house to pick up some old documents. They were in the study, and for once, no one noticed me slipping in. On the desk, I saw a folder carelessly left open. I shouldn't have looked, but something drew me closer. Inside were papers, bank records, numbers that looked painfully familiar. My heart dropped. The money I had given years ago to help with the mortgage, the savings I had quietly handed to Mom and Dad so they wouldn't lose the house, had not gone where they told me it did. It had been funneled straight into Daniel's failed business. My sacrifices, my late nights working extra shifts, the dreams I put on hold, they had taken it all and poured it into him. For a moment, the room spun. I gripped the desk to steady myself. My chest ached as the truth sank in. It wasn't just favoritism. It wasn't just them loving him more. It was exploitation. They had used me, drained me, and then discarded me like I was nothing. I heard footsteps behind me. Daniel walked in, holding his phone. When he saw me with the folder, his smirk disappeared for a second, then returned sharper. "Guess you found out," he said casually. "What? You thought Mom and Dad really needed your money for the house? Come on, Alicia. They were investing in the future. My future." I stared at him, words caught in my throat. "My future was destroyed so yours could keep failing," I whispered. Before he could reply, Mom and Dad rushed in, their faces pale. Mom's hands trembled as she tried to snatch the folder from me. "Alicia, it's not what you think." "It's exactly what I think," I snapped, my voice louder than I intended. "You lied to me. You let me believe I saved this family, when all along you were feeding Daniel's mistakes with my sacrifice." Dad stepped forward, his face stern. "You don't understand. Daniel needed that money. You're strong, Alicia. You always have been. He isn't. We did what we had to do for the family." "For the family?" My laugh came out broken. "No, you did it for him. You sacrificed me for him, over and over. And you had the nerve to call me ungrateful." Daniel leaned against the wall, smug as ever. "Why are you so dramatic? You've always been the backup, Alicia. You hold things together, but I'm the one meant to shine. Mom and Dad know it. That's why everything comes to me. You should accept it." Something in me snapped. I turned to him, my eyes burning. "Shine? You've done nothing but fail, and they let you drag us all down with you. Do you know who kept this family standing? It wasn't you. It was me. When the bank was ready to take the house, it was my money that saved it. Not theirs. Not yours. Mine." The room went silent. Mom's lips parted, but no words came out. Dad looked away. And for the first time, Daniel's smirk faltered. "You've been living a lie," I continued, my voice shaking but strong. "They told everyone it was you who came through, you who saved the property, you who carried this family. But it was me. I sacrificed my life, my dreams, my hard-earned money, while you played the golden child." Mom finally whispered, "Alicia, please." "No." I cut her off. Tears blurred my vision, but I didn't care. "You betrayed me. You took my loyalty and twisted it into servitude. You made me invisible so Daniel could shine. And now you want to erase me completely with this inheritance? No more." Dad tried to raise his voice, but I matched him, refusing to back down. "You chose your son over your daughter every single time. You called me strong, but what you really meant was expendable. Well, I'm not expendable anymore. I won't let you erase me from this family's story." The truth hung heavy in the air. For the first time, they had no defense. The lies were stripped bare, the years of favoritism and exploitation exposed. Daniel muttered under his breath, "You're still not getting anything." I looked him in the eye, my voice steady. "We'll see about that." That was the moment I decided. I wouldn't be silent anymore. I wouldn't let guilt keep me chained. Whether it meant walking away forever or fighting them legally, I would no longer be the invisible daughter. That night, the roles shifted. I was no longer the quiet, loyal one who kept peace at her own expense. I was the daughter who finally stood up. The next morning, I went to see a lawyer. My hands were trembling as I signed the papers, but my voice was steady when I said, "I want to fight this." For years, I had been silent, accepting the role my family gave me, but now I was ready to claim my place. The lawyer listened carefully, looked through the documents I brought, and nodded. "You have a strong case, Alicia. They used your money without consent, and you can challenge the inheritance in court." Filing legal action felt both terrifying and freeing. For the first time, I wasn't trying to keep the peace. I was protecting myself. The news spread quickly, and soon the whispers began. Relatives who had believed my parents' lies started asking questions. They wanted to know why the quiet, obedient daughter had suddenly taken her family to court. Slowly, the truth began to leak out. The story of how my sacrifices had been hidden and Daniel had been praised for things he never did started to surface. At first, my parents tried to fight back. They called me ungrateful, told anyone who would listen that I was greedy, that I was tearing the family apart. But documents don't lie. Bank records showed the money trail. Witnesses confirmed the times I had paid the bills or worked extra shifts. Piece by piece, their version of the story crumbled. Daniel, who once stood so tall and smug, began to shrink under the weight of the truth. When we faced each other in the courtroom, he couldn't even look me in the eyes. His arrogance, once so loud, was gone. He was no longer the golden child. He was just a man exposed for what he was, entitled, spoiled, and empty. My parents sat quietly, their faces drawn and tired. For the first time, I saw regret in their eyes. But it was too late. The years of favoritism, the lies, the betrayal, it couldn't be undone. The judge's decision was clear. I was entitled to my rightful share. More than that, the court acknowledged that my contributions had kept the family afloat for years. Hearing those words felt like a weight lifting from my chest. Not because of the money, but because someone finally recognized the truth I had carried alone for so long. Walking out of the courthouse, I felt a quiet strength rise inside me. I had fought for myself, and I had won. For years, I had waited for my parents' validation, for them to say they were proud of me. But now I realized I didn't need it. My worth had never depended on their approval. In the weeks that followed, I began to reclaim more than just my inheritance. I reclaimed myself. I focused on my career, on building a life that was mine alone, free from the weight of trying to please people who could never see me. Friends who had supported me through the storm stood closer than ever. I found peace in knowing I had chosen myself, even when it was hard. As for my parents, they were forced to face the consequences of their choices. Their golden child was no longer golden. Their lies were no longer hidden. And though they tried to reach out, sending messages about family unity and forgiveness, I knew things could never go back to how they were. For the first time in my life, I understood something powerful. I didn't need their love to define me. I didn't need their approval to stand tall. I had given so much to them, and they had given me nothing in return but betrayal. Yet I had survived. I had won. And in that survival, I found something. I stood outside the old house one last time. The windows were the same, the garden still trimmed the way I used to keep it, but nothing about it felt like home anymore. I didn't knock. I didn't go inside. I just stood there, breathing in the cool evening air, and let the memories wash over me. For years, I had carried the hope that one day my parents would see me, that they would call my name with pride instead of dismissal. I gave and gave, believing that love was something I had to earn. But now I knew the truth. Family should protect you, not destroy you. And when they choose betrayal, you have no choice but to protect yourself. I thought of Daniel, of his mocking smile and false pride, and I no longer felt anger. I thought of my parents, sitting in silence as the truth was exposed, and I no longer felt pain. What I felt instead was freedom. I had survived the breaking of my own family, and somehow, I had grown stronger from it. My worth had never been theirs to give or take. It had always been mine to claim. I turned away from the house, my steps steady. The road ahead was uncertain, but it was mine. I didn't need their validation. I didn't need their inheritance to define me. I had dignity, I had strength, and I had the courage to move forward. As I walked away, I whispered to myself, they may have chosen him, but I chose me. And that will always be enough. Hey besties, thanks for staying till the end. If this story touched you, don't forget to like, share, and drop a comment. And of course, subscribe for more powerful dramas like this one. Remember, true strength comes when you choose yourself.